Hello there, namaste. So this one was a little more uncomfortable for me. So in this one, the comedy aspect is the child marriage. And yeah, that just doesn't sit right. So in rural, and I mean very rural communities in India, that's still a thing. So you have these 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, underage people getting married to each other by their parents' bequest. And that's not allowed by law. And they're talking about the dowry, which again is not allowed by law. That's been abolished in India, but people still hold on to that. People lean into that. And it's just because it's become customary, kind of like a lot of things become traditional just because they've been done for years, even though the reason for things being done back in the day were to set up families, to make sure people were sound, the gifts were given to make sure people had the right utensils to start off life. Certain things all happen for reasons, and that's in every culture, the way marriages started out. And then as you get the things become more modern, things become more easily accessed, you don't need to give certain things. You can realize, oh, that was a product of its time, and most things need to be learned and acknowledged as a product of its time. But it's like in rural areas, they don't acknowledge that. It felt uncomfortable. I mean, there was funny aspects, but it felt so disgusting. I mean, the girl started talking about the wedding night, the wedding night in the morning, the wedding night in the day, the wedding night in the evening, the wedding night and I think I know what they were hinting at, but it just felt disgusting. I mean, that's supposed to be a child saying that. And it just didn't sit right with me. We're talking about it just doesn't feel right. I don't like anything that shows this in a positive light, anything like that in a positive light. And here it's a comedy trying to make fun of the situation, the fact that things are still like that in certain areas. But it's not, so me coming from the West, that's not something that's funny. That's something people bubble side themselves in prison, allegedly, when they're on 24-hour surveillance because they own an island that apparently allowed the rich and powerful to go there and pay for that kind. It's an uncomfortable feeling, an absolutely uncomfortable feeling. So I didn't, and again, the election's happening and TD loses. And I don't like how he handled it. Of course, the guy is gloating in his face, and then he assaults the person for gloating. It's just like, what the heck? Who's going to be the bigger man? I mean, all these people, he's just petty. A lot of the people are just petty. And I'm like, there has to be someone that's going to be the realistic character who's, I guess the young attorney is like the everyday person. The everyday person. So we are in her shoes when we learn about all this child relationship stuff. We are in her shoes when we see all this stuff on the outside because it just doesn't seem realistic. I mean, who would smack someone just because they were being petty? I mean, who in there? I mean, I got to be honest. When I landed in India, I never wanted to hit someone more in my life than when I had gotten there. So many people just being rude and cutting me off. I was just like, dude, golden rule. But I guess it's not a thing. But it's just like, I don't know. This episode just didn't work for me. There were some parts that was just like, okay, the funniest scene was at the very end where the young marriage, the police was beating the boy because he was 20 years old, and she was 17. Of course, they were younger and both underage. Oh, well, it sounds so wrong. But at the time they originally got married, but the police is beating him because right now he's an adult and she's still underage. So he's beating him. And then the father finds out that he does care for the girl. He wants to be with her, the young one. He wants to be with her. And then he finds out that they had their marriage night in the morning, marriage night during the day, marriage night at night, marriage night every month, just all the time. And then he basically starts beating his son with his sandal, and then he takes the police baton from the officer and starts beating his son with the police baton. I was like, okay, that's the one thing I enjoyed out of everything. Everything else was just a kind of a tough to watch. kind of tough to watch. But it ended on a note where he's given a job offer as a judge. And we'll see. We'll see. I think that's kind of like an end route, because as soon as you become a judge, I don't think you really progress unless you start climbing the ranks in the court system to be like Supreme Court. But as a lawyer, he has the opportunity to go into politics. And as a judge, he only has a certain avenue to do, I think. I'm not entirely sure. The systems are completely different than here in the US than in India. I'm just assuming. But yeah, this one was more uncomfortable for me, but at the same time, I did enjoy that part where the father was beating his son. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.